This is Calico community meeting for Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. Chris has graciously volunteered to take minutes for us today. So thank you, Chris. And anyone else can feel free to jump in and add anything if I think it's important to add. I shared the minutes doc in the chat. So as per usual, let's start off with some check-ins around work that's going on and releases. I can start us off with updates on releases. So 3.18 came out on the 22nd of February. So check that out if you haven't already. And we are getting stuck into 3.19 now. So we are tentatively looking at mid-April release for that, probably the week of April 12th. And there are a few areas that we're working on there. So we're looking at ways to make progress on reducing the dependency on Calico Cuddle for users in this release, which is something I'm really excited about. I know a lot of users have also chimed in with their excitement about. We're also, another pretty big thing is we're planning to release the VPP data plane integration as tech preview status in 3.19, which is a pretty awesome milestone of that integration. I see Nathan celebrating a bit. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And a few other areas as well. So I know we're looking at ways to make Calico node run as non-root. I think it's still early in that investigation, but something that we want to do. We've been running every other component as non-root for a little while now. This is really just the last holdout. And also figuring out scope on some Windows improvements as well for 3.19, but haven't quite nailed that down yet. I think those are the big things. Sean, did I miss anything that you're tracking?
Only that non-privileged is making me sad because it means like reworking a bunch of BPF stuff that we need to figure out how to do in a non-privileged world.
Yeah, but it'll be nice once it's done. I think that's kind of it for 3.19. We also have a few patch releases in the works for I think 3.16, 17, and 18 at the moment. I think we did a couple patch releases about a week ago, but there's a build issue with those. They were intended to ship. Updating a TLS version used by Felix to typha, but that didn't make it, so we're doing another patch that should be out. I think it's actually imminent, like later today, which will actually include that fix, as well as a Windows fix as well. And I think that's all I had for releases. Eric, you want to talk a little bit about what's going on with the operator?
Sure. Did you say something about the I mean, we're working on a 3.18.1 patch release too, right?
I didn't mention that one.
I'm not really sure what all's in it. I just know we're working on it. Yeah, but yeah, the operator. There's a couple things that we're working on. Actually, one of the things is something Casey's working on, and that's being able to migrate on clusters that are running typha but are small enough where the typhas that the operator wants to run don't conflict with the ones that are already running. So that will be nice for migration of small cluster. And when I'm saying migration, I mean from a manifest-based installation to an operator one. And then I think the only other thing I had for this was something that I've been working on the past day is adding typha Prometheus configuration to the operator. We already had it for Node, but need it for typha also. So I've added that and even added the so that it will be handled in migrations and stuff like that also for migrations from manifest based ones.
I didn't quite catch that for the meeting minutes, I'm afraid, Eric.
Okay, sure. I'll fill that in.
Thank you.
Yep. I think that's all I had for operator.
Cool. Thanks, Eric. And I think this is maybe a good transition if Nathan or Alois want to talk a bit about VPP, but I think one of the things to spoil the news is that they're looking at operator integration as well. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, hey everyone, thanks Casey. So yeah, for the VP data plane, there are a few things we're looking at. As you said, we're going to try to be integrated in 3.19 as tech preview. We're really excited about that. We're also currently working on integrating with the operator to make it easier to deploy the VP data plane. And in addition to that, we actually made a release yesterday that adds maglev load balancing for services. So maglev is interesting because it gives, it's stateless. So if some load balancer instances disappear or go down, any other instance can pick up the traffic and redirect it to the same backend, which gives high availability. And also it enables DSR. Which was also available using the VPF data plane, I believe. But it's a nice addition because it removes one hop from one node to another in the traffic. And I think that's mainly it, unless Nathan, you see anything I forgot?
Sean,
Does
one
that
thing
mean
I
we're
was
making
the usual set of bug fixes.
So if you want to use VPP data plane, you configure that in the installation resource, and then it all just spins up. Or is that the idea?
Yeah, that's the goal with the operator. Yeah, you will just have to add a few things to your config. So there are only 2 configuration parameters that are required right now. We might be able to reduce that even further in the future, but right now you need to configure 2 things, and then yeah, it will spawn a VPP on every node and start using that to route the container traffic.
Maybe that's a good solution for my VPF problem, and you make the operator VPF aware as well, which we were trying to avoid doing before. But sounds like we're going to have a data plane field. Might as well use that.
Yeah, it might actually be worth a quick sync between you, Alois, and Eric to flesh out if there's any shared thinking that should be done for those 2.
Yeah, sure. If we can make it more future-proof, that's great. And
the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about at some point, Sean, was this maglev capability, which sounds like something we might want to also get working with the eBPF data plane and the Linux data plane, especially for potential mixed environments where we want the nodes behaving similarly. I'll just drop that on you casually and keep moving.
Yeah, maglev is the next hypey technology on our list. It's definitely in the mind anyway. It really helps with ECMP based clusters because you can have all of your nodes load balancing in the same way, so they'll send the same incoming connection to the same backend, even though they're all independent. So that's a nice win in an environment like ours where we might be doing BGP peering with the top of racks and doing ECMP, that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Cool, so that's VPP. Were there any other updates that anyone wanted to make?
No, I think we're good. Thanks.
Cool. So I had just one hot issue that I wanted to raise, which is really, what is it? Calico issue 2923, which is actually the enhancement request associated with removing dependency on Calico Cuddle. I'm kind of in the design and requirements phase of that right now. So I know this is something a lot of folks are looking for. So if you have thoughts or requirements for that, please reach out to me and have your voice heard so that I can incorporate all of that thinking into what I build.
We've got an issue on the BPF side that I'm tracking. In 318, I'm not sure I think there's an issue somewhere, but I'm not sure of the number. In 318, if you're in an EKS cluster and you have a pod that's deployed on your secondary ENI, not the primary ENI, and you have an incoming node port connection and it gets load balanced to the pod that is local on the secondary ENI, then you can have connectivity trouble. So it's kind of one of these, like, if all these factors happen, then you get a problem. The cause is an interaction with the way we do routing into the pod and the kernel's RPF check. Due to the place where we do the NAT, it triggers the RPF check to fail. So we're working on that.
What was the number for that one, Sean, if you know?
Sorry, I don't have the number. I was trying to dig it out earlier on, and I'm not sure which repo it got reported in. That's the struggling to find it. I couldn't find it in the main Calico repo.
I'd like to summarize what you just said in 5 words, but I'm not sure it's possible.
EKS, BPF, ENI, network trouble. I don't know if acronyms count as one word or not, but that yeah, that sounds like a hairy one.
Casey, can I just ask you about 2923? As I mentioned in Slack, this was something when I was using Calico in my previous role, that we noted that Calico Cuddle had a similar syntax, but not the same syntax as kubectl, and it caused fun, and you know, so it was definitely reflected on that it might be nice to be able to do everything through kube. So that's great. What about because it has that secondary role when you're actually on the node of checking node status and that kind of thing. Did you ever think an idea about how that functionality might?
Yeah, so I am looking kind of holistically at those sorts of capabilities as well. My first, first in importance is kind of the API interactions around creating, deleting, updating resources, since I think that's 90% plus of what people use it for. But I am thinking about some of these other status reporting things. And I think there are paths forward there where we, you know, rather than SSHing into a node and running some commands, having the code that we're already running there, reporting that back to the Kubernetes API somehow. So
yeah, I remember it caused me a little confusion when I first started using Calico, that the command did different things depending on the context I was running it in.
Yeah. So like we could report BGP status back as a status field on the node object, or introduce a new new API resource that summarizes, you know, BGP status or other node node statuses. That's all stuff I'm looking at.
That second option sounds interesting, because then you could integrate with that stuff in other ways as well. All right, we might talk about that later if that's all right.
Yeah, of course.
I think we had someone requesting that we keep the node like network availability status updated depending where the Calico node is running as well, to sort of just make Kubernetes do the right thing. If Calico node goes down, then it will stop scheduling pods there and kind of fit in a bit better. We currently only do like one way on the flag, I think.
Yeah, I think that one's come up a couple times in the past as well, and it's always felt like a slightly scary thing to do, just because you don't want something like an oversight or a bug to result in all of your nodes going not ready, for example. But if we can get that right, it would be pretty useful, I think. Cool. Yeah, that's good that you are also thinking about that, Chris, because I wasn't sure. Maybe I'll pick your brain a little bit more about your experience with this later.
Yeah, definitely. Cool.
So I wanted to shout out to Lars Ekman, who I watched debug an issue that we thought was with Calico, and turns out it ended up being an upstream issue in Kubernetes around what was it, like YAML parsing, or I'm struggling to remember exactly what the result was, but updating Go in upstream Kubernetes resulted in Calico stop working, and
There's a validation issue with custom resources.
yeah,
If you had a null field in a custom resource and you compiled your Kubernetes server with Go 1.16, that was what you managed to diagnose somehow.
yeah, exactly. There was some very squirrely, weird thing in the API server that he did a great job tracking down and circling back to let us all know that it wasn't some horrible issue in Calico, it was some horrible issue in upstream Kubernetes. So I very much appreciated that.
I think it was deep in some library that Kubernetes was using. They'd made a bad assumption when they were like comparing two values, and then Go 116 fixed the bad assumption, and it no longer held. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the fun ones to debug.
Yeah, it's always nice when fixing a bug introduces another one.
The bug becomes part of the API spec after a while, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. This is the law that I just learned about, which Hiram's law, which is a good one.
Oh, right. You know what? I just thought I'd learned that the other day. I now realize I learned it from your post. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That I had not heard of that one before, but then Tim Hawk had mentioned it on the SIG network call, and I thought, yeah, this resonates with me quite a bit.
From my history working with hardware networks, the thing you were talking about a minute ago about health checking the node and potentially reporting that back, how closely coupled that is, there's pros and cons to how you do that, because if you either have a health check that actually isn't checking all the way down the stack, in which case you have a high chance of the kind of false positives that you described, or you need to build something that really probes down and proves that the actual workload is reachable or something like that. It's a really recurring problem with hardware networks. The same thing I was talking about with BPF, that sometimes the health checking algorithm fails when the actual protocol is still up, or vice versa.
I think you mean BFD.
Did I say I said BPF, didn't I? Yeah, BFD. Sorry, but bidirectional forwarding detection. I'm glad you picked me up on that. I kind of, yeah, I came out of my mouth wrong. BFD, yeah, bidirectional forwarding detection. It's done on the ASIC sometimes, so it can get wonky with reality.
Yeah, I think that the ask that we get more frequently is more simple, just whether or not your software is running, not like a full end-to-end check. You know, the first level is it can't be working if it's not running, and then once it's running, we can get deeper into whether or not specific things are functioning the way they're supposed to. But yeah, it's a tricky one to get right, which is why we've kind of held off a little bit. I had one more shout out for GitHub user KGTW, or Chris G, who's been working with Matt Lung on our team to add the ability to specify kind of more precise fail-safe rules, specifically allowing fail-safes not just to particular ports, but also matching those ports with IP addresses or CIDR ranges. So that's going to go a good way towards letting you have more fine-grained control over your fail-safes and what traffic is allowed by default to your nodes. So I think that's all I had. Did anyone have any other shout outs or issues or anything they wanted to bring up before we do a demo?
I meant to bring something up earlier. not that Tigera, the company several of us are working for, has a new SaaS product, Calico Cloud, that will allow people to take an existing Calico cluster, some that aren't necessarily running Calico, but you can take it and get a free trial to hook it up to an enterprise and run a trial of the enterprise, where we host the management plane and Elasticsearch that our management plane uses, in a UI and all kinds of extra bells and whistles, um, that is available now. I will add, or somebody will add, some links to the notes, if anybody is interested in learning more or trying it out. You can get a 2-week free trial, if you're interested in checking out some of the enterprise features that we offer. So just wanted to bring that up, that is available now. And let us know if you have any issues or any requests around that.
Cool. Thanks, Eric.
Yep.
I think with that, we're going to hand over to Renee, and he's going to show us some cool certificates work that he did recently.
Okay. Dan, if you could stop sharing, I can share my screen. Thanks. So hopefully you all see my screen now. Yeah, so starting in Calico version 1.17, we now have a new feature called certificate management. And this feature allows our users to have custom workflows for issuing and signing certificates. So in the current form, to make everything very easy for the user, Calico creates a couple of self-signed certificates for the connections between Node and typha. And when you use this feature, that's no longer the case. And also the TLS secrets are no longer stored in Kubernetes secrets. So it comes with a bit of a security improvement. So to explain how it works, this is the sort of the old scenario. If you follow our quick start installation, you end up with the operator pod that installs Calico on each of your nodes. And this operator will create pods for Node and typha. And it also creates secrets that are self-signed TLS secrets. The pod mounts those and it gets a certificate from a config map. And this is how trust is established between Node and typha. So in the new scenario, this is slightly different. Operator creates these pods like Node and typha. And instead of just the main container, there's also an extra added init container. The init container has a shared volume with the main container, which is like an empty tier memory volume, and it submits a Kubernetes certificate signing request within their like a X509 certificate request. And it will then watch and watch until a approver and a signer have respectively approved and signed this certificate signing request, which means that a certificate is added to this object, and then the init container mounts it into the volume. The main container picks it up and now trust is again established between typha and node. What's missing from this diagram is again the config map, because the CA cert is now shared with those pods instead of just the individual cert that was created self-signed. So to configure this, you need to add a little section to your installation resource, and in there you put the CA cert that all your pods have to trust, a signer name, and this is the format for the signer name. So you put a domain in there, / and then a signer, and this allows you to distinguish between different signers if you have different pods that require different signers in your cluster. And you specify a few algorithms. And the init container uses that to issue these certificate signing requests. So this is an API that's pretty recent, and it's gone. The V1 is first introduced in Kubernetes 1.19, but for compatibility reasons, we for now stick with the V1 Beta 1 API, and we're looking to add support for both in the near future, so that we can detect what cluster you run, and then we use the newest API available. So once a certificate signing request is created, it can no longer be modified, so it's completely immutable, and the username and the groups in this object are added by the API server. So when you bring your own approval process, the approver can check if the username or the group that the service account belongs to is actually allowed to create a certificate for the the given subject or DNS names. So it's up to the approver to make sure that no one is trying to obtain a secret that shouldn't be allowed. Yeah, so in terms of documentation, you can see all the configuration options in the API reference, which is the second URL. And the first URL kind of explains you how to install it, how to create your own approver and signer. It's also possible to configure your kube controller manager to sign, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend you really create your own like automated processor, or use your automated process that you already have. So yeah, let's show that in action. Excuse me. So I have a cluster here, a kubeadm cluster with Tigera already installed. If you look in our quick start guide, you see you have to apply a manifest called custom resources. So if you look inside there, I already put my information in there. I picked the algorithm, the signer name, myself, and this is the cert of my authority. So once you apply that to your cluster, just a quick note, I have shortcut K for kubectl. So if you look in your cluster, and if I were to delete a pod, say Calico node, you see that a new one, will try and start up, but it's hanging now in the init phase, and that's because the init container has created a CSR, but it hasn't been approved yet. So let me show you what that looks like. So the CSR it's always the sort of fully qualified name of your node, so you can kind of find what CSR corresponds to what pod. And like I just showed you in the presentation, you see here this completely immutable object and the status, which is absent. And the status is the only part that you can sort of modify for this object. So as you can see, it is now pending. So I made a script that can approve it, like an auto approver. It doesn't really actually look for anything, it just approves. So let's run that script. And you can see here that it's now been approved, and this also means that there's now a status here that says it's approved, but no cert is in there yet. It still has to be signed, so I can also do that with my script. And if we refresh this, you can see a certificate has been added. And that means that our pod can now pick up this cert and share it with the main container. And so the pod is now running. So in a nutshell, I guess that's how it works. So this feature is used in Calico. It's also used for enterprise features, and we're looking to expand on the system. So you may know that there's a popular tool now for a while now. It's called Cert Manager, and Cert Manager currently has its own certificate signing request object, but in the near future they're looking to also support the native new Kubernetes API. So once that's all been done, then you could probably very easily integrate our certificate management features with Cert Manager. So it helps you automate, certificate management with other issuers like GoDaddy and whatnot. So that's my demo.
Very cool. Thank you, Renee. This is really exciting. This is the first time I've actually seen it in action. Yeah, so it's pretty cool to see that.
Does it have any effect on the certificate validity? How long the certificates stay valid or renewals happen or anything like that?
Yeah, so that is something we still have to work on. So the user that actually, the user that first uses this feature, they actually drain nodes every X hours or X days, and so they issue certificates that are pretty short-lived. So that's currently how they refresh certificates. I think currently we don't have this yet, but we should add support for Node to refresh its certificate once the time is up. So those are that's very good point you bring up. That's something we're still thinking about, and we will work on that support.
Cool. It looks really great.
That certificate renewal or refresh process could just be like a rolling update essentially, right? Because every time Node starts, it issues a new signing request and we'll get a new approval and a new signing, if I understand correctly.
Yes, you kill pod, and the new pod that starts up will create a new certificate, because the private key dies with the pod because it never leaves it. So currently, if you want to expire a certificate, that is the responsibility of the issuer. But yeah, we have to probably think about how we read that expiration from the cert and then sort of reissue. That is a feature we currently do not have today.
So you mentioned this upstream project certificate manager. Is that, like, until that switches to using the Kubernetes API, do users need to spin their own approver and signer like you have, or are there other tools? Okay.
Yes, but it's fairly easy. The repo that I have contains an example, but also in the docs, it will tell you. Sorry. It will tell you it's basically 2 API calls you need to memorize, or 3. So you want your. Let me make this a little bit bigger. So you want to host some server that is watching for CSRs, so that this is, if you're familiar with Go, you can kind of use client Go to create a client, and basically you want to watch and to update you have this update status call and update approval. And then you add your custom logic, I guess, for the kind of checks that you want. That is how I would.
Rene's idea of easy is different to mine.
Yeah, well,
I was thinking the same thing.
There's also kubectl commands for this, but obviously you don't want to have a person looking at the terminal all day approving certificates. So yeah, right now this is a custom process, and it was also prompted by users who already have that custom process. But yeah, in the near future, you could probably use Jetstack's cert manager for it, which is sort of the standard now in Kubernetes. It's a very popular tool, and their users are trying to get them to migrate over to the new API.
You said what controller manager could do it for you? What is it? Just like auto approve and sign anything?
Yes, you have to start it with a bunch of flags. So if you're on a managed Kubernetes solution, you might not be able to configure this. But for instance, on kubeadm, you can set flags and it will approve things. Actually, Kubernetes itself uses this CSR API as well for some of the system critical pods in there. So maybe we can even see it here. No, right after your cluster starts, you'll see it, I think. So
what's the down? I mean, besides maybe not being able to use that everywhere, is there any downside to using that one?
well, approving a certificate is a very serious, security consideration. If you just approve anything, that means that pods can pretend to be something they're not, and it opens up your cluster for various problems. So yeah, that you shouldn't take it too lightly. You want to carefully consider it. Maybe it's because my cluster version, but even Kubernetes itself uses this API, and so it has its own approver. Unfortunately, I'm not able to show you right now.
Are we going to integrate with anything that kind of helps to attest the node, like like if the node has like a trusted platform module or something, then like that can help to bootstrap trust and make sure that the CSR looks valid to someone who's checking it.
I'm not sure if this really answers your question, but with the team, we are gonna look into for the operator to yeah, sort of natively always use this API, and that will mean that our own operator will perform these checks, and so we will make some sort of robust, framework for checking that the user and the groups line up with the subject names in the cert. And I'm not sure if that answers your question, but at least it would, help a user to, not just issue certs without consideration.
Yeah, I think that helps. I think it's a slightly different question, but maybe we take it offline and can explain it.
I see. Yeah. Yeah. Happy to.
Any other questions for Renee or for anyone else?
Okay. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Renee. So I think that brings us to the end of our agenda. We'll have our next meeting, as always, on the second Wednesday of the month. So that will be, looks like April 14th, right around the time of 3:19. Till then, I'll see you guys on Slack and Zoom and wherever.
Thanks, Casey.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks, everybody.